Let's talk a little bit about this thing called boundaries. This is what I call midlife masterclass. All right, let's talk about boundaries. You know that thing we kind of have heard about in our 20s, then ran from in our 30s, and then got absolutely wrecked in our 40s. Or is it just me? Am I the only one? Because that's what happened to me. And then finally, I got it together in my fees. What about you? Because here's the thing. What I realize is, life is always sharing a way for me to learn my lessons. And I heard this thing Oprah said a long time ago where she's like, life is always whispering until it can no longer whisper anymore and it shouts and it causes chaos. And I realized that if we stay in the same exhausting, frustrating, honestly, downright painful cycles, when do we ever learn the lessons, right? So I want us to think of this moment as our midlife masterclass on boundaries. So grab your coffee or your wine, depending on what time you're watching this, or even just your green juice, whatever your vibe is, because we're going to go deep. So let's start off with our 20s. The 20s for me, I was like, I know everything, or so I thought. And really, the 20s is the era of delusional confidence, right? Now, we've heard about boundaries. Like the first time I even heard the book, this popular book called Boundaries. That's the first time I heard it. My husband and I were at a conference, and somebody we were sitting next to, we were talking about, I think, parenting or something like that. And she brought up this book, Boundaries, and I bought it. I bought it, you guys, but I did not read it in my 20s. And then maybe, like you've heard it from your friends or your mentors, or, because your 20s is when you're really seeking out guidance from your professors or your much more mature coworkers. But the thing is, we hear about it, but do we actually enforce it in our lives? Absolutely not. And why? Because we know better. We're young, we're wild, and we're free. We say yes to everything. We overextend ourselves. We let people walk all over us, but we don't admit it. We don't admit it at the time. We don't admit that immense amount of people pleasing we have at that age, and we don't even realize it's happening. And if someone told us at that time, you need to set boundaries, it's like, really? Please, I got this, right? And so then we just smirk and life whispers, okay, we'll see. So then we get to our 30s. The lessons get louder, do they not? And it turns up the volume. This is when we start to feel the consequences of ignoring our boundaries. And for me, I felt it a lot in my female relationships at this time. And, in my 30s, my mom was really sick and had passed away. My children were still young. I had a 9-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 7-year-old. Boundaries, please. Not even in my verb. It wasn't in my verbiage because I was overly exhausted. I was taking care of young kids, taking care of a slowly dying mother from breast cancer. I was really drained. And there was all these other things that, like running a business. And then I remember thinking like, man, I keep attracting the same toxic friendships and the same draining relationships, the same energy vampires. But again, I still haven't really figured out that it has anything to do with boundaries. I just need to ignore, avoid, right? And so, we haven't, I mean, for me, again, I'm just sharing my experience. I'm saying we because I'm hoping really I'm not the only one. But do we listen? No, because we're really out here living, y'all. We're climbing career ladders, or for me, I'm helping my husband build a business, raising kids, keeping up with what I assume I need to keep up with at that age and trying to be perfect. And I'm honestly wouldn't admit it then, but perfection was what I was trying to achieve. And boundaries, come on, ain't nobody got time for that. So life steps in again and taps us on the shoulder and says, I'm going to let you finish, but you're about to hit a wall. And at the time, I remember thinking I had already hit the wall because I was so heartbroken from my mother passing. And I thought that at the time, that was the biggest heartache I had experienced. And then the 40s hit. Oh, we're going to learn. Going to learn today. That's what the 40s is about. And in our 40s, life does not come to play. The lessons I had been ignoring for 2 decades, they do not whisper anymore. They are screaming to the top of their lungs. And it starts to really take a toll on my peace, and I didn't really know about energy work at the time. I wasn't into the mystic spiritual space. I was very naive to all of that. And the burnout becomes really real. The resentment builds. We start looking around and, I don't know. Again, is it just me? Because I started looking around going, wait a minute. I did all of this for everybody else. And now I'm just tired. I'm just so tired. I really hit a breaking point, and for the first time, I fully understood boundaries aren't about keeping people out. They're about keeping myself. I spent too much time ignoring it and wanting to be validated and people, all the things. And really, I didn't have a clear understanding of what boundaries are. And at this stage, setting boundaries was no longer an option. It really became crucial for my survival because my kids were getting older. I'd spent all this, 3 decades at this point with the same man. And when you're getting to that point in your life where your kids don't need you as much and you're having to reconnect in a partnership in a different way, you don't even know who the you are, right? And suddenly, life is like, hey, sis, it's time. So time really, we stop answering calls just because our phone rings. For me anyways, again, am I in this alone? It's a time where I start to really decline invitations that drain me without guilt though, because it is absolutely vital for me to understand boundaries and then implement it in my life. I start really understanding how to say no without explaining why I'm saying no. I stop I just stop all the craziness that has led me to be not about me. And it sounds so ass backwards because it's like, oh, selfishness, but no, really, I needed really to look at me and needed to see what I needed for me. And that's where the boundaries really started because life isn't asking anymore at this age. It's not about learning anymore. It's actually demanding it at this time. So now here I am, fast forward. Let's talk about the 50s, where boundaries now become a habit. It becomes intentional. And for me, I feel like this is the golden era of my life. Y'all, if you haven't hit 50 yet and you're scared because you're thinking, oh my God, you're so old. Oh, freedom. 50s is freedom. And I have incredible relationships with women over 50 and their lives are magical. So I'm in the era of freedom, and 60s, I think, is the era of magic. And I think 70s is the era of endless bliss and glimmer. That's what I'm going to say about that. Don't know yet because I'm not there, but when I get there, I'm going to talk about it. So this to me is when boundaries are no longer just a theory. It's not just a thought. It's not just, oh, I should read the book one more time. It becomes a way of life. Truly a way of life. We've seen what happens when we ignore them. We've lived the consequences. and we're just done with the unnecessary stress, right? Am I right? Again, ladies, am I alone in this? I feel like at 50s, we're really at the space where we're no longer negotiating our peace. Oh, hell to the no. We are embodying boundaries like breath. It doesn't feel good. We don't do it. If shit doesn't feel right, if it doesn't feel good, if our energy is a little bit misplaced, out of alignment, but then how do we get there though, right? Like you probably are in agreement with me, like, yes, sis, I got you. I have spent the last, I'd say, 48 months really digging deep and doing the work, the deep, deep work of releasing myself from the chains of my past, my unhappiness, my unforgiveness, all of the things. And I'm at the point too, if someone gets mad at my boundaries, bye, because that is no longer my problem, it's theirs. Right. I watched this interview with Maya Angelou a long time ago where she always had these dinners. She would invite all of these amazing humans to dinner and they would sit at the dinner table. And prior to coming to dinner or being in Maya Angelou's space, she set what she called rules, boundaries, where there's certain ways you couldn't talk to each other or about someone that wasn't there, or, really just solid, like we're here to connect, to communicate ideas and love on each other. Well, at this dinner party, somebody had came across and had sort of like an attitude about somebody else and said it kind of crooked. I'm going to find the video and post it. And she right there on the spot asked them to leave. They knew the rules. They knew the boundaries. And I remember the person interviewing her asked her, like, wait, like you just asked them to leave? And she said, yeah, but like, I'm not that person. I'm true to what I expect. It was laid out. The boundaries were set before you came to dinner. And bye. It's not happening. And I remember listening to that going, I want to be there someday, right? And here I am. Here I am at 51 years old. And the thing is, what I've come to realize is when I started embodying boundaries, one boundary at a time, because it's scary at first, right? I don't want to not be liked. I do not want to be rejected. I don't not want to be with people I've been with for years and years and years. But the thing is, it's not about them. It's about me. And what happened was I started to really attract people who respects me as I am, who sees me as I am, who hears me as I am, and loves me exactly as I am. Some of them I haven't known for 20 years, but it's okay, because self-respect is truly my end goal. So this is when life shifted for me. This is what I believe is stepping into my power, reclaiming what was already mine, but I had given away. And what it has given me in return is joy, happiness, freedom through authentic connections. This is it right here. So here's my question to you. What stage are you in? Are you still trying to please everyone? Are you still in the era of learning the hard way? Or have you stepped into your full power? Just a thought. Something to think about. That's what it is today. So I love you. And I know that together we all make a difference, one person at a time. So let's keep each other accountable, because here's the truth. We are being selfish in our quest for boundaries. It's about self-respect, and it takes one to know one. So we can see each other, we can sense each other, our energy just spews out. In midlife, this is the era, ladies, where we stop talking about the things and we start living it. All right. I love you and I mean it. Now go out there and protect your peace.